Hello everyone, welcome to the latest edition of CX Conversations. I'm Matt Simpson, Managing Director at Candyspace, and today we are talking video streaming, and I'm very happy to say I've got an absolute expert in video streaming, the sector, in Daniel Winner. Hello Daniel.
Nice to be here, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely welcome. Why don't you tell everyone a bit about your experience in the sector?
Yeah, so I've been working in the media and entertainment space for the last 25 years or so, and I've worked across the ecosystem for some of the big tech companies like Amazon, some of the incumbent broadcasters and pay TV companies like Sky, some of the producers like BBC Studios, and I've been involved in developing, launching, and scaling some of the more interesting streaming plays that we've seen over the last few years. I was involved in growing Love Film, building the foundations for Prime Video, helping Vodafone to build out streaming services in video and music, and helping BBC Studios make the pivot into direct-to-consumer.
I can safely say there is no one better for me to be talking to about this. We're going to look at what we think is going to happen in 2025, what the major sort of trends and themes are in the sector. It'd be interesting first, though, to just hear your thoughts on what's happened in 2024, like what have been the significant trends, major developments across the sector.
Yeah, and we were talking about this a second ago. I think what's really interesting is thinking about where we were a year ago. From a macroeconomic perspective, we were in a tricky spot. The economy was not growing, both in the UK and globally. It was challenged. The ad market was also in a tricky position, and there was a lot of uncertainty. Decisions weren't getting made. So across the media and entertainment ecosystem a year ago, not a great place to be. I think the headline is things have improved considerably in the last year, and we're now in a better place in terms of the overall market. So, part of that uncertainty has gone with elections in the US and UK. The ad market has come back considerably. So the global ad market, not just the TV ad market, total ad market across all verticals is up 10% this year. So that's quite a significant rebound. So that, I think, has laid the foundations for a better year. In terms of streaming, look, I think there are a few headlines to kind of point out here. The unstoppable shift from linear to streaming continues and will continue in 25 and beyond. And we're now at a point where, in the UK at least, more than 50% of all viewing is on streaming. I mean, that is a significant milestone. And obviously amongst younger audiences, that figure looks even more interesting. So 80% of viewing amongst under 34s is on streaming platforms. So that shift in terms of audience behaviors has continued in the last year at pace. And because of that, you're starting to see some very clear winners in the different parts of the market. So in SVOD, the game's not over, but the Netflix has really emerged as the clear winner. And then behind it, Amazon and possibly Disney in that kind of top tier. In social video, YouTube absolutely emerging as the winner in that space, and with TikTok notably behind it in that top tier. But if you're not in that top tier, if you're a global player, not in the top tier, if you're a local player who hasn't got that scale, it's challenging. And I think a number of folks in that cohort have had difficulties this year. I mean, some, like Paramount, under their old ownership, they've thrown in the towel. They've handed it over to new owners. Others in that tier are struggling. They're struggling to make money. They're struggling to prove to the markets that they've got businesses that have an exciting future. And if you look at Warner Discovery, their share price is down 60% over the last 2 years. 60%. I mean, that is, I think pretty striking. So there's those challenges, and I think another kind of big overall theme for me is in the streaming industry. 2024 has been a lot more about profitability than about growth. So all players, even those in the kind of that top tier, are focusing much more on the underlying economics of the business and how to improve them. And they've made some, across the board, I mean, there's been some positive moves to creating more sustainable businesses. I think that's really healthy because in the past, there's been a lot of money spent without a clear line of sight to profitability and creating sustainable businesses. So I think it's been an interesting year. We're still in a state of flux, but on a sort of personal note, I find it very exciting because if you look at the media and entertainment ecosystem, for an extremely long time it was stable. Not a lot was happening. There was a tried and tested model for developing, commercializing IP, building audiences and making money. But we're now in a state of flux, and in that state of flux, there's a lot of opportunity to do things differently and better. And for the folks that are out there that are far-sighted strategically, they can make some bigger moves that can set them up for a more interesting future.
Okay, that is a really good perspective and overview of 2024, and I'm very encouraged that you feel there's a lot of positivity going into 2025. Let's pick up on some of the themes that you talked about there. First of all, the evolving consumer viewing habits and audience behavior. So the numbers of people choosing to watch streaming rather than linear TV is, as I think we all suspected, just rapidly increasing, and particularly, as you say, for the younger audience. So how do you see that continuing to evolve, and importantly, what does that mean for content creators and distributors?
Yeah, so look, the inexorable march towards a streaming future continues, and I think there will always be linear broadcast, but its percentage of total viewing is going to get lower and lower. Now, amongst younger audiences, those streaming trends become sort of even more pronounced. And I think the really interesting question is, when those younger audiences age, do they continue those kind of behaviors? And I think when I think about those younger audiences, it's not just thinking about how to increasingly spending time on streaming services. It's about what their wider behaviors are and how those in the ecosystem should think about it. I mean, those younger audiences are increasingly social. They're increasingly into gamified content. They're increasingly into immersive content. So all of those themes, I think, are important and relevant to actors in the industry, and how they think about what kind of content they package and retail to audiences. Now, I think all those in the streaming industry need to think very hard about how they attract younger audiences, and how they capitalize on learnings and insights in terms of what works on social platforms, and whether that's thinking about formats that work on social, whether it's thinking about creators and talent that work on social, whether that's thinking about how you create user journeys between social and streaming platforms. All of those things, I think, are important and should be top of mind for folks that are operating streaming platforms. Look, as we record this interview in mid-December, one of the things that's about to happen is that Amazon are going to be launching their Mr. Beast format. So Mr. Beast, over 300 million subscribers on YouTube. can they bring some of that audience to Prime Video by creating an incredibly ambitious game show with the biggest ever contestant prize in history? But will that work? I mean, it's going to be a really interesting experiment.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with that. I think, talking about young people, I think it is very easy to make some sort of quick assumptions about having less attention span than perhaps their predecessors, like obviously preferring short form content. But I think it's the case that it's a bit more nuanced than that, and actually big US dramas and comedies get big numbers of the younger audience watching them. Like, is there a case of the bigger streamers with that long form content holding their nerve to some extent and not trying to replicate what those younger audiences get from a TikTok or Instagram Reels and so on?
I mean, the short answer to that question is, I think streamers need to do a bit of both.
Yeah.
So, as you say, it will always be important for them to have the kind of the hero content on their platform that breaks through amongst with multiple different audience cohorts across multiple different territories. So, if you've got a show like The Crown or Squid Games or Bridgerton, you've hit the jackpot. It's working across all those different levels. But streamers segment audiences, and they need to think about shows for everyone and shows for specific audiences.
Yeah, for sure. I think it means you need to work harder as well. The gaming sector is very good at creating things that hold the attention of younger people for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Right. We may get onto that later in the conversation, but I think that's an extremely critical point, right? Because if you think about the video game space, and you think about two things, you think about business model, freemium, and how that works and how effective it's been. And back in the day, I helped set up Amazon App Store in the UK and pioneer of the kind of premium model. And you had companies like Supercell come into the market, with a games as a service proposition, where you get locked into an experience. It's constantly updated. You're in a universe, you're in a world, and you feel part of that. I've got a 14-year-old son. Every day over the last 4 or 5 years, he's been playing Brawl Stars, which is another Supercell game, because he's immersed in that world. Yeah. I think there's a lot the TV and streaming industry can learn from that.
Yeah, for sure. You talked a bit about some of the winners and losers from 2024. So Netflix, I think you said, being one of the bigger winners from the year. What do you see going into 2025, and particularly around whether there'll be any mergers and acquisitions in the video streaming sector?
I think 2025 is going to be a big year for M&A and consolidation. And there are a few reasons for that. On a very sort of practical macroeconomic level, interest rates are going down. Cost of borrowing, it's much easier to borrow. Private equity are able to kind of structure deals that are going to be more affordable. In the US, I think it's significant, no matter what you think of his politics, that Trump is going to reduce regulation. So that is going to be another thing that's going to encourage M&A. Because of the pace of change in the industry, no operator can really afford to stand still. So, I think for all of those reasons, there's going to be significant amount of M&A next year. And what's going to be driving it is consolidation. Scale matters more than ever in this space. So a lot of the plays are going to be around getting bigger. Some plays will be around acquiring new capability. I think mainly it's going to be about getting bigger. And so everyone in the industry needs to have a point of view about whether they're going to be a consolidator themselves or whether they're happy to be consolidated. What is the shape of the market going to look like after all this M&A, and whether they want to be in that? So, it's imperative the leaders in the top of these companies think strategically about what this is going to look like in the future, and thinking more practically in terms of how that M&A is going to play out. The top tier global streamers, I don't see them being significantly involved in M&A. But those outside those top tiers, I think will be impacted. So if you think about global streamers, Warner Discovery, Paramount, Peacock, NBC, Comcast, in that group, I would expect to see some change and some consolidation. What that's going to look like, I don't know. But my sense is, of those three that I've described, Warner Discovery is the one that's less likely to continue in its current form. In terms of local AVOD and broadcast, again, I think there's going to be significant activity in that space. In Europe alone, you've got a number of different plays. Let's see how they pan out. But the companies like Media for Europe, which is an Italian media company, have talked about their interest in doing a roll-up of European broadcasters, streamers. They have an interest in ProSieben. Companies like Canal Plus, the French player, has an interest in Viaplay. So I think there's going to be a lot more kind of cross-border deal making, because many of the European broadcasters just haven't got the scale and heft to compete in the market. And then sort of allied to that, if there's not M&A that is being considered by a local player, perhaps they're considering how they can club together with others to build products and technology together. So a great example of that model is Bedrock Streaming, that you'll be very familiar with, that came out of RTL and M6 in France, and is building a model where other broadcasters can be part of their product development roadmap. They share the costs, they share the upside. So I can see a lot more of that going on as well. And then to round it off, in social video, potentially there's going to be some action there in terms of M&A. So of course, the YouTube, the Daddy, they've got tremendous momentum, scale. They're on a winning streak. But TikTok may get sold for regulatory reasons. Let's watch this space on that. But even Snap and X potentially could come into play. Maybe not this year, but maybe within the next 3 years. Snap, I think the last time I looked at its market cap was only at 20 billion, which it has not grown significantly in value in the way that the other big techs have. So that does raise some questions about its future.
For sure. And in that context, and I guess in the context of a brighter economic outlook across the sector as a whole, how will the bigger streamers and the smaller streamers employ tactics to improve their profitability, drive up subscriber growth, and sort of maintain their position in the market?
Yeah, so this theme about improved industry economics, I think, will continue to play out in 25, and quite rightly. It is important for the health of the industry that we've got businesses there that are in good financial shape, and where the markets, and where they're publicly listed, can see that these are businesses with good prospects. So I think we'll see some of the trends we've seen in 24 continue. And some new ones sort of coming into play. So thinking about improved economics, I've got to highlight a few things. So price. So I think we will see more price rises from the SVODs. And look, for a long time, consumers got an unbelievable deal. Huge amounts of high quality content for next to nothing. So that's fine whilst you're building a market position, but as businesses mature, they have to better reflect the value they're delivering in price. So prices will go up in the SVOD space, but I think more interestingly, I think there'll be more segmentation. So different price points for different value propositions targeting different customer groups. In a way, you've seen a bit more of this in music streaming with what Spotify are doing. And I think that trend will continue in video.
I mean, I guess the bigger streamers introducing AVOD propositions over the last couple of years as a step towards that. Do you see those sort of multi-tiered offers continuing to evolve?
Yes, I do. But I would think about offers that are targeting different. I mean, there's one piece around this which is revenue diversification, which is sure is a sort of a path to building better businesses, and that sure can play into the way you segment the offer. But I would think about different offers for different groups. So family versus single use, students versus others, and this is what Spotify has done. And if you look deeply at the opportunities to segment, there are many. So and this is just what you would naturally expect as a business matures. As you mature and you grow the market, it makes more sense to segment.
How do you think they will deal with the consumer promiscuity? And by that I mean, and I do this, okay, there's something I want to watch on Netflix this month, I'll subscribe, I'll unsubscribe, subscribe to Apple, unsubscribe. That's quite common behavior now.
Yeah, and look, I think this sort of plays into another important point here around churn. And I think product and the way product drives engagement is going to be a really key piece of the jigsaw in terms of keeping people for longer, building more attractive lifetime values for each of the customers you acquire. And I mean, Netflix have, to their credit, done a very good job of this, really figuring out what kind of product improvements drive engagement. I mean, fundamentally, you're always going to get people out there that will go on trials and game the system. But if you've got a customer and they're happy and you keep them, then fundamentally that is the path to success. Yeah, so I do think that's going to be another piece of the jigsaw in kind of building a better path to profitability, building more attractive, sustainable businesses. I mean, the other things I would highlight would be content costs. So, and whilst I think the theme here is not necessarily about reducing content costs, it's about being more laser focused on what content is going to deliver an attractive return on investment. So making less kind of speculative bets and being more focused on content where you have high levels of confidence it's going to deliver a return on investment. Maybe because it's addressing a fan community, maybe it's got proven talent, maybe it's a proven format. And look, this is a theme that has been playing out for a little bit. It's not entirely new. But then what we're seeing is less risk-taking. And whether you think that is a good or a bad thing is a sort of moot point. But fundamentally, that's where we are. And where we're also at is that streamers and other players in the space now are asking producers to think about how technology can help to reduce budgets, how AI technology, cloud technology can change and improve production workflows. So I think that is another theme too. And then we've touched on revenue diversification as well. Ad tiers.
I'll give you a really good, very recent example from last night of revenue diversification. It's the Candyspace Christmas party. We were all playing Squid Game as presented by Netflix in a sort of immersive cube in the middle of Shoreditch. So I'm sure that's being rolled out all across the world and is adding to Netflix's revenue somewhere or other. But yeah, I mean,
you make a brilliant point, which is that everyone who's in this space is in the business of originating, distributing, and commercializing IP. That's fundamentally the world we're in.
Yeah.
And I think the industry is starting to wake up to the fact if you've got good IP, there are a whole ton of new ways you can really extend that experience for fans. And the Squid Game immersive experience, great example. Let me give you another one. Stranger Things live theatre experience, which has been a monster hit. You've got that fan base of people who are into Stranger Things and they want more. So give them more.
For sure. Let's just finish up. This is fascinating. We could carry on for ages, but let's finish up by talking about, I guess innovation a little bit more, like how I always have to talk about AI in every meeting I do now. So how will AI and perhaps some other, very rapidly advancing technologies, VR, AR, going to impact that, I guess, that bid for revenue diversification and the quality of the product in the streaming sector?
Yeah, I think that there are a few things that I would highlight, and AI for sure is a fundamental piece of the jigsaw. And I mean, let's just be clear about it. Gen AI is probably the most important technology shift since the internet, and possibly even more important than the internet itself. I mean, the way it's changing the world is going to be pretty fundamental. And the way that AI more broadly is in terms of machine learning is already playing kind of a big role in terms of improving discoverability and personalization. I think those are going to be big themes going forward. It's still, I think streamers still haven't cracked the code yet of how to make their content selection easy to discover, so people get the right thing for them at each kind of mood state or use state they're in. So there's lots of great work going on in that area, which will continue, and technology plays a key role in solving that puzzle. I think the couple of other areas that I would kind of flag, there's going to be technology is going to play a really important role in terms of innovation in the ad space, both in terms of thinking about new ad formats, how you create through the funnel campaigns, which is sort of a kind of a nirvana for the ad industry, how you bring together data sets to learn more about the customers you're targeting, and fundamentally how you improve ad efficiency and ROI. So that's going to be, I think, another super interesting space. Of the global players, I think Amazon are doing the most interesting work in that world. And then we touched on this earlier, production workflows. In the long form world, there's still, I think the industry is still at a relatively early stage in terms of rethinking production workflows and how they can be enhanced with technology, whether that's in the editing, post-production part of the journey, where cloud and AI technology can deliver some really interesting efficiencies. But outside of long form, there's already a huge amount of that work going on in social video and other parts of the market. And maybe you take animation, for example, there's some really interesting players out there. There's one I'll just flag in particular, a company called Animajaj. I think I pronounced it correctly. Started up by some ex-YouTubers who are creating kids content, animated kid content, but using AI and cloud technologies to do that differently and better.
It sounds like it's going to be a really fascinating, exciting, and hopefully a very positive year across the sector as a whole. There's loads more we could talk about, but I think let's leave it there for the moment. Daniel, thanks so much. It's always fascinating hearing your thoughts on it, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, and I'm wishing everyone a happy new year for 2025.
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks everyone, and see you for the next CX Conversations.